Forster must be loving life at Southampton, raking in big wages and shutting out the superstar strikers of the English Premier League. But Alan Thompson suspects the big goalkeeper will sit in front of the television a week tonight to watch Celtic host Paris Saint-Germain and feel a tinge of envy. For as exciting as his life in one of the biggest leagues in the world must be, it's still not the highest level of football and often played out in atmospheres that don't come close to the buzz of a big European night at Parkhead. That's what lured Patrick Roberts back to Scotland for a second spell on loan from parent club Manchester City, the chance to test himself against the very best in the game on the most prestigious stage in world football. And if that is seen as a lack of ambition, then Thompson must be looking from a completely different angle. Fraser Forster first signed for Celtic on loan from Newcastle in the summer of 2010. Image Daily Record. If any case study could support Roberts' decision to return to Scottish football, it's the rise of Forster from the inexperienced lad who arrived on loan in 2010 and left 4 years later an England international. Unable to rise above third-choice keeper at Newcastle, 3 loan spells at Stockport, Bristol Rovers and Norwich had given him first-team experience, but nothing compared to the opportunity Celtic would offer. Thompson, part of Neil Lennon's coaching team, played a big part in convincing his fellow Geordie to come north on a season-long loan. No such effort was required to persuade him to return for a second spell on loan the following season, just as Roberts is doing now, as he realised the size of the club and the opportunity it gave him to grace the biggest stage of the game. Forster helps Celtic to famous win over Barcelona. Image Getty Images. The highlight of course being the night he and his mates floored the mighty Barcelona 21 in one of the greatest European nights of the club's history in 2012. Such headline-grabbing performances like that were enough to earn him a call-up to the England squad, just as Roberts has declared his burning ambition. And Thompson, another one who forced his way into the England setup based on the strength of his performances in Europe, reckons it was Celtic that was the making of them both. Just as it will be for Roberts. Celtic was the making of Alan Thompson, he said without a shadow of a doubt. Celtic was the making of Fraser. If he hadn't gone up there and played in the Champions League, I'm not sure he would have been in the England setup as quickly as he did. So I can totally understand Patrick wanting to play in the Champions League again, sampling that experience, and if he does well on that stage, he'll massively enhance his reputation. There's plenty of time for the boy to go down to England and cut it in the Premier League because he's got the ability. But listen, how many teams is he going to play for in the Champions League if he doesn't get the breakthrough at Man City? Probably none. Image SNS Group. So this is a fantastic opportunity for him to go up and play for one of the best managers in Europe, because I do rate Brendan Rodgers that highly. Albeit the club doesn't have the biggest resources because the league and the television money Scottish football gets doesn't enable that. But Celtic have still managed to make an impact despite that gap in finances. There have been some magical nights at Parkhead before, and to be involved in great moments like beating Barcelona are moments that any player would dream of. Another positive in going back is that he knows what it's all about at the club, so he'll not need any time to settle in. He can hit the ground running, and he'll need to with the Champions League starting next week against a massive team like PSG. And for all the wealth and glamour of the Champions League, Thompson insists the grass is not always greener on the other side. Thompson is now at Bury alongside Lee Clark. Image Reuters. Thompson, now working as Lee Clark's assistant manager at League One side Bury, added a lot is made of the English Premier League, but it has its share of average games too over the course of a season. Whereas if you are playing in the Champions League group stage, you are genuinely testing yourself against the very best in the world. Patrick will know that, having tasted it already last season, and Big Fraser knew it too. It's a big pull for players. That's why highly rated younger players such as Moussa Dembélé are drawn to it as well, knowing that there are few clubs where they could play Champions League at that stage of their careers. Look at it this way, Fraser is at a big club in Southampton, but it's not the size of Celtic, and Southampton are probably never going to be in the Champions League. So no doubt Fraser will be watching those games in the coming weeks, knowing that helps sampled and wishing that he could sample it again at some stage with one club or another. Fraser didn't need any convincing to come back for a second spell when his first loan deal ended. He knew what the club was about, and I think once you've sampled it at Celtic Park once, you're not going to refuse it a second time. Sure, the first time round I needed to mark his card about what to expect. When I came up as a player I had friends who had been there already, Alan Stubbs and Tommy Johnston, who gave me advice how to go about my business. If you have that kind of guidance it can be a big advantage, so I wanted to make it clear what Fraser was coming to first time round. But there's no doubt playing for Celtic made him a better player. Fraser improved all the time, although that was a lot to do with his character too. You couldn't get him away from the training ground. We actually had to tell him to leave sometimes at 4:40 p.m. He was there continuously looking at his video footage and working on the physical and technical aspects of his game. So it was no surprise to me how he improved and the level he has ended up playing. Now Patrick has said he wants to reach that level too, by getting into the England squad, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility if he does well in the Champions League for Celtic. I'm sure Gareth Southgate will be well aware of him. If he goes and performs on that stage, he'll be very hard to ignore. In saying that, it took me a while to get a heads up from Sven-Göran Eriksson, but that's another matter. I'm sure Gareth will be aware of him, and if he has the media banging the drum for him if he does well this season, then it can only help him as well.